Hi everyone! So the dog is sleeping on my bed and she looks really sweet and I didn't want to disturb her. So instead of sitting on the bed like I usually do, I'm in this little sad corner of the room, which is actually kind of dark because of this wall right here, but whatever. Today I wanted to talk about the process of naming characters. I have several different processes for naming characters and I'm going to go through each of them and how I go about naming my characters, and hopefully that will be helpful for you. For main characters, the name is usually already there for me. When I'm first starting to brainstorm ideas, or I just have a story that's in my head that was inspired by anything, like a book I read or something, if I have a story in my head, the main character usually just has a name. Don't ask me how, but they usually just come with a name in my head. So with main characters, I usually don't have to go through a naming process. This was the case with my dystopian trilogy. I knew the main character was named Cassie Wilmark. I don't know why. That's just what happened. However, for the other characters in that story, I didn't know their names and had to actually go through my naming process. So let's talk about what that process is. Sometimes when I'm writing the story, a name will come to mind that just seems to fit with the character, and so I'll just use it, but that's usually not the case. I tend to name my characters while I'm doing character profiles. If I know that there's a character in the story, back to my dystopian trilogy, I knew that Cassie had a sister, a twin. I didn't know what her name was. I did have parameters in this specific story because I knew that her twin was going to start with the same letter that her name does, so it had to be a C. So what I did in naming her, and what I do for naming all of my side characters that don't have names, is I look at their personality and their character traits, like who is this person, and then I name characters based on that. So I'll make a list of names for each character, 5 or 10 different names that have meanings that resonate with that character's personality, something that fits who they are as a person, and then I'll choose one of the names on that list. For the record, Cassie's sister ended up being named Cinderella. She's a very princessy typed character. And since the first book is from Cassie's perspective, it fit even more because Cassie views Cindy in that way. Cassie views her twin as this ideal of perfection almost. So yeah, naming her Cinderella worked. But she goes by Cindy, so it's not too weird. So yes, I look up names, make a list, run through them, find one that fits. For surnames, I do a very similar process. Cut out the meaning part, just look up a bunch of surnames and use them with the name that I have. So if I have a first name, I'll pick some last names and say like Amanda Hutchinson, which is my name. Or I'll, stick it with different last names and see which one rolls off the tongue easily or which one sounds good to me. I'll end up with a list of 10 or 15 names, and then I'll take that list of surnames and I'll run it by a friend and give them each name and have them think it through, say it out loud, whatever, to find one they think fits well. And then based off of that, sometimes I'll choose the one that they think is the best, sometimes not. But as we're both running through the list, I usually get it narrowed down to about 5 names. And then I pick one, usually my favorite, that seems to work, and that's how I get surnames. I've also had to completely rename a cast of characters before. In my Robin Hood series, I wrote it, and then before I published it, I had to rename half the people for copyright reasons, and so I had to go through, and I just used the same process with finding a list of names with meanings that meant something to the character. This is my tried and true method. I use a couple of websites, just random like baby name websites I found on the internet to look at names and look at their meanings. I also like to reference a book that I have. It has a whole bunch of names in it, and it has their literal meaning, it has their generally accepted meaning, and it a lot of times will have like a Bible verse or something that goes with it that reflects that meaning of the name. And so I use that a lot. I love using that book to find names for my characters that fit who they are. And then there are some random characters where I just know their name right off the bat. But yeah, finding names based off of meaning or character traits that pertain to the character I'm trying to name is really helpful, I think. It's really fascinating and helpful to have special meaning attached to people's names. So I do that a lot with my stories. That's how I name my characters. Anyway, that's all I've got. I hope that helps you name your characters. Make lists based off of personality or character traits or something about that character that stands out. Find names that mean that. pick one that works, run names, first and last names by friends or family, get their ideas. Naming can sometimes be a collaboration. And it's fun to have sounding boards when you're writing, so find some good sounding boards for naming characters or for whatever. There'll be a link in the description where you can find my website. It has my Robin Hood series, my dystopian trilogy. The 4th Robin Hood book was just published, so you can get that now. The 3rd and final novel in my dystopian trilogy is going into the editing stage now. Will hopefully be published around December, but I'm not 100% on that. Don't hold your breath. It might be next year. And in the meantime, happy writing, everybody!